You don't know what's going on right now. We all have gay icons. Andy has a gay icon. At least half of their name on his stuff.
Is it Ryan Try?
No, I should have put that. You're right. I fucking love it. Andy makes me so happy. I could be so stressed out. I could be the most stressed out I ever could be in the world, and Andy shows up and makes me just smile and happy.
I nearly cheated. I nearly did the thing, but I did.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. You're good. You have probably the best card out there.
Half the people I've spoken to laughed at me. But then half the people said I have no idea.
No, yeah, well, honestly, it's a little bit more of an obscure one, but it's a good one.
Do I know?
Probably not,
Is
honestly.
it first name or surname?
Surname. Yeah. So, I'll give you a hint. It starts with a C. Gay icon.
Nah, Charlie XCX ain't gay. That would have been a bad
But
song.
that actually, I almost put Charlie XCX.
Why?
Y'all, because she's a gay icon.
Oh,
The
bro,
gay-
that would
gay
be my
photo.
one.
I know, but
I love Charlie
if I would put
XCX.
XCX on the back of someone's card, I feel like they wouldn't have got it though. Okay, one person would have gotten it. One person would have gotten it. I don't know if chat knows this, but Andy loves Charlie XCX. I went to Coachella last week. First artist I saw when I got there was Charlie XCX. And guess who was she? She was fucking performing with Troye Sivan, another gay icon. Okay, also, we know. We found each other? Wait, get over here. No, get over here. Okay, so I don't know if I explained this already, but I gave everyone note cards with gay icons, first and last name. They had to go find it at their match. And we have a match right here. David Bowie. Which makes me so happy, okay? Because I love Jonny, and obviously I love Renato. You guys can sit wherever, and then I'll talk in the beginning, and then you're next, yeah. Okay. Okay, chat. We're starting Be Free Stories Night. This is super important to me. You're going to hear everything I have to say to everyone else, but here we go. Maybe I should... What's up? I don't know. I'm nervous to start.
You got this, bro.
Thank you. Okay.
It looks so good.
It does look good. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for all your help. This wouldn't be possible without Rec Dan here. We're using his laptop.
You're ready.
Okay. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Where's my DJ Ryan? What's up?
I ask this at every party or event. Can I eat that and it's not edibles?
Yeah, you can eat it. It's not edibles.
You sure?
0 marijuana in those cookies. These are the cookies that Rec is talking about. Not Devontae, an actual cookie.
I will have the biggest panic attack of my life.
No, bro, it's not. It's not. Weed. It's not weed. Okay. Okay, where's Ryan? Oh. All right, Ryan. Can you fade out the music? Thank you, bro. No, you can fade it all the way out. I'll just tell them to come on in. Yes. Okay, here we go. All right, everybody. We are going to get started with our Be Free Stories Night. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this private event. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming over. I really appreciate it. Y'all are some of my closest and dearest friends, and I feel very, very loved and supported by y'all because as of Monday, I have been out of the closet for 10 years. Yes. Thank you. Thank God. And so I figured I would bring some people together and celebrate with a Be Free Stories Night. And I'll get more into it a little bit later, but oh my God, Kenny, are you serious? No, everybody give it up for Kenny, who handed out everyone's cards. Thank you, Kenny. Yes, Kenny Brown is here. Yes, absolutely. Everybody also give it up for Rec, who saved the day with the stream. Yes, Rec Damn, baby. And thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to talk more later, but I just want to say I never want to take it for granted. 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. I never want to take it for granted that I get to be myself and I get to love these amazing dogs over here, and they still love me even though I'm gay. It's the best thing in the world. And
yeah, no, I never want to take it for granted that I get to be out and I get to be myself. I get to talk about who I like or who I love or who I'm dating. And I don't have to be afraid anymore. I used to have to be afraid for the first 22 years of my life. And it really took a toll on me. And 10 years ago when I came out, Jonny was there. Which is why it's so special he's here tonight. I entered into a whole new realm of existence of just being able to be myself, talk about what's really going on in my life. And ultimately my goal with every interaction I have and with Be Free is to make sure that I'm doing my best to help other people feel that same freedom. And the best way I've found to do that is to do Be Free Stories Nights, where people can come and share a little bit of their stories in hopes that we can all better love and understand people who are different from ourselves. Be Free started mostly with just LGBTQ plus stories, but I soon found out that everybody has a story to share and everybody has something to be free for or be free from. And it's been an honor and a privilege to do these events for several years at this point. And I'm at the point now in my life where this is like the most important thing that I could do, and I want to keep doing it. And so thank you for being here and just for helping me sort of reignite this part of my life and something that I want to do essentially for the rest of my life. And the way we're going to celebrate tonight is by hearing some Be Free stories. Classic. And so I invited a couple friends to share their stories, and I'm really excited about both of them. Both of whom I've known for several years. Jonny I've known for over a decade. Kai I've known for close to a decade. And Kai has shared at a Be Free Stories night before, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear from Kai because Kai is so insightful, so gracious, and bold with his story. And I've learned so much from you already in the past, so I'm excited for everyone else to hear from you. And Jonny has never spoken at a Be Free night, and I've been asking Jonny to speak at Be Free Stories nights for years and years and years. Yes. And so I'm excited personally just to hear what you have to say about your story. So I'm going to shut up, and without any further ado, everybody give it up for my friend, Jonny Liu. Yeah! Here you go. Hold it. Yeah.
Nice. Brian, thank you so much for hosting this. It's so exciting to be a part of Be Free. I remember, if anyone saw his Instagram story leading up to this, he talked about the door of discussion. And he was a student leader at a Christian university that, well, still to this day is not very friendly towards LGBTQ. I was a staff member at the time. I first met Brian when he was a freshman and he was applying to be a student leader. So again, I'm on staff. He's applying to be a student leader. We blindfolded everyone and they had to put together a tent. And that was part of the application process. And I remember Brian, even then as a freshman, was like demonstrating all this leadership. Like you could imagine like sweet Brian, like blindfolded, trying to put together a tent with like 10 other people in a room. And he's like, I think I found this piece, and then, meanwhile there's like me and like 2 other staff members and we're just like, this is amazing. And then, from that moment, actually he was selected. And when we first met, when we first got to know each other, we did it was like a 12-day backpacking trip, where it's 70-pound backpacks. We're literally 12 days out in the wilderness. You're sleeping under the stars. Like you pack in everything and you pack everything out. Like it's actually kind of like hazing. It's actually kind of crazy. But that's when I first met Brian. And I felt that infectious joy that he has, like the laughter. And fast forward, right? So that was his sophomore year. Then junior year, he was on my staff. right? And so he ended up being a student leader for 3 years. But when he was on my staff, I was so excited because I was like, man, here's this guy named Brian. I remember him from freshman year, sophomore year, etc. Then junior year, he comes in, and no joke, it was kind of like night and day. You could totally tell that something was like weighing him down, right? And I'm like, where's the Brian that is like super joyful, right? And so we would have these one-on-ones like every week. You'd have to sit and you'd have to talk to each other, and I'd have to be like, how's everything going with your residents, etc. And you know, Brian would just kind of be a shadow of himself. Well, he then applies senior year for the same leadership position, gets it, and then at the end of that year is when he posts on the door of discussion saying that, hi, my name is Brian TERADA and I'm gay. That summer after he graduated is finally when Brian and I were able to connect again. And I remember when he shared, he was like, junior year was one of the darkest years of my life. And how this relates to Be Free and how it relates with me was up until that moment. So if you were on my staff, like I tried to be there for you as much as possible, right? Because that's my one job. And I remember every week I'd be like, okay, I hope this week Brian and I have a great one-on-one. And then it'd end up being not so good, right? And then I'd be like, oh man, I wonder if it's something I've done. I wonder if he's mad. I don't know. For some reason, we're not connecting. It turns out that when you are not free to be yourself, sometimes what can happen is that you spiral, right? You start to question. You start to wonder, who am I? Am I even worthy? Am I even worth anything? And that's where Brian was. And here I was really trying to just connect with Brian as a friend, but also as a supervisor, not being able to connect. And the worst part is like, it was because there was an institution that we were both attending and I was working for that was anti-LGBTQ. Therefore, you could never be that version of yourself. So if you could just imagine what happens if you continue to live that way, is you're in the closet, but you're also just trapped. And so it is so exciting to be here at the 10-year anniversary of Brian coming out, because it has been 10 years of seeing Brian flourish, meet so many of you here, and encourage so many of you watching on Twitch too. Thank you, Brian, for having us. Thank you for spearheading Be Free. And thank you for being bold in your story, because I think sometimes it feels like, well, my story isn't good enough. Or who am I? You know, it's like, oh, I don't know, whatever. There's other people with more important stories. That is not true. So thank you for that. A brief Be Free story for myself. I was born in Taiwan. So when I immigrated here, obviously there was a dual cultural experience, right? I mean, we've experienced this. Many of us are not from LA. So, you know, you imagine moving to a place and all of the social norms are all weird and not what you're used to. Of course, you begin to feel slightly isolated, etc. I remember just wanting that classic, like, Thanksgiving dinner, you know, that you would see on, like, I don't know, like an old movie. But of course it was never that way, because my parents had to work like 15, 18-hour days. You know, we were like latchkey kids, which basically meant that like you had like the key to your house like around your neck. And so me, my brother, my sister would walk to school and back, and we basically raised ourselves. And that was really difficult, because you kind of you kind of get silent and a little bit quiet about your needs, kind of like who you are. You begin to make your own priorities second or third, you know, and you learn how to be a really good model minority, right? You learn to be just that perfect person, and then before you know it, you've kind of lost your own identity. So it wasn't until, I would say, college where I really had a chance to explore. And, you know, it is exploring in a more physical way with, so I'm pansexual, but, I mean, my first relationship was with a girl. Hi, Sherry, if you're watching. she's married now, and she has a kid, and, like, you know, she's amazing. But my first time, have you guys seen Heartstopper? Okay, so it's on Netflix. They're not sponsoring us or anything. I'm just saying. But it's kind of like a coming out story and coming of age story. And it's so beautiful because it's like a story of high schoolers, and there's one moment where their fingers touch, and then they animate like electricity. That is what I felt. And I think it was so exciting because you're like, wait, what is this feeling? And it's so strange because a lot of times we're told to be a certain way, but then we stop we stop wondering, we stop dreaming. I know C.S. Lewis, who is a prominent author, says the moment you stop being childlike and remembering imagination and creativity, the moment that happens, you'll stop being joyful and living. And that moment with electricity was so exciting for me because it was the first time that I felt awakened in many ways than one. And I just remember we would have makeout sessions that would be hours long. All of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, it's the next day. And you're like, wait, what? It's been 7 hours? Right? And you're like, ooh. And you don't often get those same experiences anymore. But I share that because in this day and age where, even today, Florida expanded their Don't Say Gay bill, so now it goes to grade 12. Today they signed that. Not to mention, of course, all of the rhetoric that we keep hearing, anti-trans, don't say gay, all this kind of stuff. Now more than ever do our stories matter. Even if it feels as simple as just that electricity you feel when you touch someone's hand. Be true to yourself and listen to yourself and listen to what you want and not what everyone else wants. Yeah, it's been a pleasure for me to live life openly, and to be free. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share. Yeah.
Jonny Lou. Thank you. I love you. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, thank you so much, Jonny. I love you. Also, Jonny, really quick, for anyone who doesn't know, what does pansexual mean?
Yes, so...
Sorry,
I have not explained. Pansexual means that it's mostly emotional for me, connections. So gender doesn't matter. I'm telling you, if you and I connect on that mental way, I want to get to know you more.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course.
Appreciate it. Yes. Is that? Do you know what the answer to that question? Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay, honestly, yeah, okay. So bisexual is basically like men and women. Pansexual is all, and demi is, say again? Three, okay.
It's typically like 3, but people sometimes who are demisexual don't want to specify.
Okay.
They're not really interested in specifying.
Yeah, okay. They're just trying to fuck. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Johnny. And thank you so much for helping us with that answer, Kai, which is perfect because Kai is our next speaker. And like I was saying earlier, Kai has spoken at Be Free before and has just really enlightened me on the power of your story and just how gracious you are and how thoughtful you are and how patient you are. And so I really appreciate that, and I'm excited to have that be shared here tonight. So everybody give it up for Kai Carlton. Yeah.
Well, hello. I know some of you here, some of you I don't really know. For those who don't know me, I'm Kai Carlton. I guess I'm probably here today because of my friend Chelsea. I met her like about 10 years ago. We went to a similar art school. I dropped out. I'm now studying psychiatry, happily. Did you graduate? I did. Good for you. You made it out. I did not. And school still asks me for those transcripts, which are not to be found, because the school is not to be found. But anyways, I digress. For those who don't know, I am a trans male. I transitioned about 3 years ago is when I began my transition. And I'll be honest, it's weird for me to talk about this. I had been pretty much gay my whole life, meaning I acted like a boy my whole life. My parents called me it growing up because they didn't really want to gender me either. Luckily, I had really forward-thinking parents, so they were also really funny. It wasn't in a mean way. It was more like, oh, where did it go? Where's it at? And I would just come running. I'd be like, I'm right here. I'm still kind of like that. I had a leash. I was one of those kids on the leash because I was just like everywhere. It's like, I'm going over here, I'm going over there. But yeah, like I said, I guess I started my transition 3 years ago. Something to know about me and my transition is that I was a firm believer in that I didn't feel the need. I didn't want to come out to everybody I knew. It felt like a dishonor to myself because I was like, well, all these other people that I know and look, are my friends and look like me, etc. They don't sit there and say, oh, I'm this, and you have to respect it. They just do it, right? They just live their life, and you respect it naturally. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do, and that's how I'm going to be. This is my truth. I don't need to sit here and explain to not even my family, not even my closest friends, nobody, and my partner at the time. I went ahead and said, I'm gonna start doing this because I have to. And I don't know if that makes sense to everybody. I mean, it goes back to like what he was saying about when Brian in his junior year seemed like he just wasn't fully there. I was getting to that point, right, where every day was hard. Every day waking up was difficult. Every day getting through. And if anybody's experienced depression or anxiety severely, you know how that feels, right? It just to not be able to get out of bed, to not want to pull yourself together, it just is hard. And that's how I felt. And I didn't want to explain that. I felt like I explained it in therapy. I felt like I explained it to doctors, etc. And I was met with confusion everywhere. Wherever I tried to look, I had doctors telling me, we don't know what you're talking about. And the reason I bring this up is because and today it's so easy to get online and say, well, the LGBTQ community, the trans community, they have a lot of support. Look at all this stuff online, right? It's hard for me to get a job still. Places will see my dead name that I still have not been able to change, things like that. I might be outed. I worked at a warehouse that I had to pretend to be somebody I wasn't for 2 years, doing labor work just to make it through. And I was genuinely scared of some of those guys finding out. They called me faggot every day. They wrote on my car, Kai is gay. Maybe it was a joke, but I've gone to jail for knocking out somebody who called me a faggot. So it was like, it was hard for me to get through every day feeling like that and hiding behind something that wasn't me. And even to sit here and say, and go to work every day like I did and pretend I was somebody that I wasn't, was killing me. It was slowly just eating away at my soul. And I was telling Brian, I haven't spoken about this in a while recently because of the legislation, like you brought up earlier, has been deeply getting to me. For anybody who's not aware, there's multiple states pretty much telling anybody, I'm also a musician, saying if you're trans, if you're dressing like a woman, drag queens, or dressing like a man, any sort of like that, we can charge you, book you, take you in. We can kick you out. We can fine you. We can do whatever we want. Tennessee, for example, they could easily do that. I love this country, but it is debilitating to see that happening. Not even for myself. I really, yes, it bothers me, but I don't give a shit. I'm gonna go anyways. I'm gonna do that. I'm at the point now I don't care anymore. I'm gonna still do what I want to do. I'm gonna live my life. I'm gonna live my truth. What really bothers me is the children, and to know about institutions that are still making it hard for people to come out. Know about legislation still making it hard and fearful for little kids who are growing up who would have been just like me. And what's worse is that when I was a kid, I didn't know I had this option. I didn't know I could be this man. I didn't know I could be this person that I am today. If I would have known that when I was younger, I would have saved myself so much pain and so much heartache. And when I think of that little kid, I want to apologize and I want to hug them. But when I think about the kids now, I want to fight for them because they know what they need. And they're being told that they're not allowed to have it. Their parents are being told, we'll prosecute you if you help your children. What kind of life is like that to live I read a story, and this is not a good story, it's not a happy story, but I'm gonna share it just to give some insight about a 4-year-old. You develop a gender schema when you're 2. If anybody's taken just a basic psychology class, you develop your gender schema. We all did at around 2. We probably started saying, I want to wear that dress, or I want to, I like this shirt with the car on it. And, you probably started doing that around 2 when you can speak and you could express. All kids do. This child started to say in the moment they could speak that they knew that their parents were telling them that they were a boy, but they were a girl. She felt like a girl, just a 2-year-old. The parents tried to approach it as best they could. They're in Florida. And they went to multiple doctors. They went to endocrinologists, pediatricians. They went psychiatrists, psychologists. They went everywhere, bless the parents. They were doing everything they could to try to be like, our kid is obsessed with this fact, right? They're obsessed with this. That obsession with them saying to their parents, I am a girl, and there not being any sort of resolution to that or any acknowledgement, still being called a boy, still being dressed like a boy, etc., saying I'm a girl. This 3-4-year-old started being obsessed with death. This 4-year-old tried to jump out of cars, asked their parents, how high does a building need to be for me to, am I just gonna get hurt or am I gonna die? I started asking, what does it take to drown? Started trying to just harm themselves at 3-4 years old. This is not just a psychological, I'm depressed, that's a 4-year-old, right? What is a 4-year-old to be depressed about? It's their own identity being questioned and being ignored every day. Imagine if you're yourself and you say, I'm this, I do this, hi, nice to meet you, and somebody just goes, no, you're not that, and you don't do that, and I disagree, and they just sort of turn away. Imagine that every day and going through, that's what's called being misgendered, right? Every day going and being treated like something that you're not. Luckily, the parents of this 4-year-old and stuff, they did go to other states to try to make sure that this 4-year-old gets the treatment they need. Now, that's not hormones, it's not surgeries at 4 years old, it's just making sure that the child is going to get the care that they deserve. I don't want to get too much farther into it, but when I went through that first time too, of what I call my first puberty, I also was suicidal, tried to kill myself at 13. And I only say this, and like I was saying, it's hard to speak about, but I only say this because I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who has felt like that. And if I can share and just say that, my heart goes out to anybody who feels like that, and not just the trans community, which is all of the LGBTQ community. You might think that we're protected in this bubble. You might think that we have friends who support and love us. I've had friends who want to ignore the fact. And not ignore, like they don't want to talk. I don't want people to be like, tell me about your experience. I don't want to be honest. Like, please don't ask me that, because like the way I see myself when I wake up in the morning is I'm just this man now, right? I go through my life like that. I am who I am. I am what I see in the mirror. I am who I wake up every day being. But there's still work to be done, because going out and every day there's still institutions that won't allow you to be yourself. And it makes me mad that they're religious institutions, because in my opinion, a God that you want to pray to would be a God who loves all of their children and loves every manifestation of that being that there could be, not just by the genitalia that they were born with, which I think is a very placid and two-dimensional way to even look at individuals. I challenge everybody to just look at people for what they show you, what they deliver you, not even what you see in front of you, you know? Just what they show you themselves is the most important thing. And I think it goes for all of us. And if we can just go through each day feeling like we can be free to be ourselves, then it will be a better world all around, right? I think we could all agree with that. But I want to thank Brian for having me again. And thank you guys for just listening to my story. It's been a minute since I've talked about these things, because it's very upsetting to see the direction our country wants to go in, when it feels like so many of our citizens don't agree with, don't even align. They just don't align with this, but there's that small percentage, right, who do go out and hold a lot of money. That's the key, who are getting the power to say these things. But I think we have the power to change it. We have the power to go forward and make a difference. So I think we should. But thank you for letting me share again, Brian. Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Kai. All right. Well, thank you, Kai. Thank you, Jonny, so much for sharing. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian, and I'm gay. Yeah, I usually don't. I usually host a Be Free night and say a little bit about my story. But tonight I decided that after 10 years, I would practice what I make other people do at Be Free nights and share a little bit of my own story coming out. And you already heard a little bit from Jonny. And I was talking to Renato about this story just like a few days ago, and I realized, like, oh my God, I haven't really like thought about that whole process in so long, after a whole decade. And so, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna share with y'all a little bit about how I got to the place where I was ready to tell everyone that I knew and that I loved something that I thought may keep their love from me. That's right. Get him, Cooper. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I was born into a very religious family, and I appreciate that for everything it taught me. We went to church every Sunday. My parents are amazing parents, and I have incredible siblings as well. And there was a lot of love around me growing up. And including from my friends. I had a lot of friends, and I loved high school, all that. But thank you, JC. Bye, dogs. But yeah, I always kind of felt like there was this one thing about me that was unlovable and inexcusable as a person and as a friend or as a family member. And I had to keep it a secret in order to fit in. Maybe at least Barry can come out. I don't know. Desperate. But I'll tell you later, Barry. Yeah, there was always just one thing that I felt like made me unlovable. It was unforgivable. It was the worst thing that you could possibly be. And if you were to live it out, then you would burn in hell forever. Which at the time was a very real place that I believed in. And I sort of ignored it up until I was 20. And I had a very happy life. And when I was 20, I was a sophomore in college, and I met a guy named Ryan. And the night that I met Ryan, I remember shaking his hand. I remember his long blonde hair. I remember how he convinced me I would be able to do a backflip off of someone's knee. I remember how he wanted to get my phone number so we could hang out. I remember his cream waffle shirt that he was wearing, everything. And I remembered it because the moment that I met him, I fell in love with him. And my sexuality, who I am, became something that I couldn't ignore any longer. And the reality began to set in. The reality that if anybody that I love knew me for all of who I am, they wouldn't love me back. And I realized that nobody knew me, and I began to ask the question, if nobody knows me, then how could anybody love me? And if anybody did know me, then they would realize that they actually don't. And that's about when I went into the period of my life that Jonny was talking about, where I became a shell of who I am, and I just started to act like what everyone expected me to be, and I didn't feel it. I wasn't just being me. And a whole year went by, and then when I realized I was going to be a student leader again my senior year with a bunch of freshmen, I knew that group of kids deserved better than what I was. They deserved someone who at least was trying to know themselves and love themselves, if that's what I was going to preach to them. And I knew the first thing that I had to do to take a step in that direction was to tell my friend Ryan why our friendship had dissipated in that whole year. Why I stopped talking to him, why I didn't return his calls, why when we did talk, I was distant and I would say things that didn't really make sense but were hinting at something. And I knew that the first thing I had to do to hopefully get better was to tell him my reasoning behind that. And I'll never forget the end of my junior year of college. Me and him walked out to the track, and he just kept asking me to name exactly what was going on. He's like, name it. And I hadn't really ever named it before. But finally, I just was barely able to. I was mouthing the words at first. I was just like this. I was like. And finally, I was able to put some sound to it, and I finally said, "The world hates me." And Ryan just asked, "Why does the world hate you, Brian?" And then I mouthed the words again. Because of the way I feel about you. And I knew Ryan well enough at that point to know that he wouldn't react in a negative way. But I still wasn't sure exactly how we would navigate that situation. After being best friends and my unexplained just falling out from our friendship. But he ended up just asking me, what can I do for you? And that was the first time that I really felt like I experienced unconditional love, where someone who I had treated so terribly for the year prior with no explanation heard my truth. I came out to him and confessed my love for him at the same time, and all he wanted to know was how he could be there for me. And he was there for me. The summer went by, and the first semester of my senior year of college, him and I would meet up every week for at least 2 hours on like a night that felt like this, like a chilly night. And we would walk around our campus, we would walk around the college next to us, and just rehash our entire friendship. And I would have to oh yeah, I think there's more batteries behind there. Thank you, Rec. Everybody, once again, give it up for Rec. Saving the stream. And yeah, so for 2 hours every week, him and I would just talk about our friendship, and I would tell him all these things that I'd never, ever told anyone before. And after about 4 months of doing that, some pretty intense therapy, and I was also meeting with someone else for 2 hours a week, just trying to go through everything in my life. I essentially had like 4 hours of therapy every week for 4 months, and no doubt I needed it. Because at the end of those 4 months, halfway through my senior year, I started to leave those conversations with a little bit of hope for my future, which I didn't have for a really long time. And I realized the value of hope and how fragile it is, and if it's gone, it's very difficult to just get out of bed in the morning or find a reason to work hard or do the things that you love. But the way Ryan loved me through that friendship showed me that I was worthy of love and of life. And then because of that love, I felt empowered to share with a few other people in my life my truth. And I got up to like 13 or 14 people. And my roommate at the time, when I told him, his main message to me was that God doesn't love me despite the fact that I'm gay, but he loves me because I'm gay. And I just had never, ever heard anything like that. And you can interpret that however you want. The universe, your friends, your family. You're loved because of who you are, not despite of anything. And so by the end of my senior year, I knew that I had to share this with everyone on campus before I graduated. because I was a prominent student leader. I had a lot of freshmen that looked up to me, and I just wanted them to know this other part of who I am before I graduated, before I was like off in the distance, so that they could see that we're all the same. And even though we're different, we can still love each other. We can still do our best to understand each other. And I knew how valuable that was because the year prior, I felt like my life was over. And so after I came out to about 13 or 14 people, by the end of my senior year, my roommate, Brett was his name, he's like, okay, we're going to do it. Like, we have to do this before you graduate. Because he knew I wanted to. And he's like, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to invite everyone who knows over to our dorm room, and we're going to pray here, and you can share a little bit, and then everyone can go on a little prayer walk around campus and just pray for the following 24 hours. And that was April 17th, 2013. Or actually, that was April 16th. And that's what we did. And I had a bunch of my Christian friends over, and I talked with them, and then we all walked around our small Christian campus, again, where you weren't supposed to be gay. And and then after that, I remember walking around campus and seeing my friends walking around and just being comforted, knowing that, like, okay, like, at least I know these people are here and this is a safe place for me to be, at least with them. So after that, I went down to my friend Jonny's apartment that was at the bottom of the dorm, and I went with my friend Nikki, and I opened up my notebook because what I was going to do was write something down on a piece of paper, put it up on this public door of discussion at our school. But I opened up my notebook and I didn't know what I was going to say. And I've said this many times before, and I'll never forget what ended up coming out of me at that moment. And it was, my name is Brian TERADA, and I'm gay. All I want to do with my life is show people God's love, and if I can do that by sharing my story, then I'm going to share it. And so I wrote that down. Jonny and Nikki are sitting there with me, and I ripped that page out of my notebook. And Nikki walked with me out to this door of discussion, and he helped me pin that note up on the door. And I always remember it was a good thing that he was there, because if he wasn't, then I probably would have just torn it down right after we put it up. And it was really powerful to me that he was there too, because both of us were going through this confusion of wondering, like, is this okay? Is this the right thing to do? Am I going to be okay? Is being gay okay? But he knew that I needed it. And he helped me stick those pins into the door. And didn't let me take it down. And he let me sleep with him in his twin bed that night in his dorm room. And when we woke up, we went to chapel the next morning, and I remember everybody was going to leave chapel and see my note on the door, and I just didn't know how anybody would react. And so my roommate Brett had a plan, and so he picked me up after chapel, and we drove to a rock climbing gym, and we just were rock climbing for hours, and I put my phone away to pretend like everything that was going on back on campus, just to ignore it. And I remember, like, when I came back to my phone after climbing and pulled it out of the little cubby, I had a bunch of messages in my lock screen of texts, and it was so long ago that people were writing on my Facebook wall, and I was shocked to see that people wanted to find me, and people wanted to hug me, and people wanted to tell me that they loved me. And I realized that, one, I was very fortunate. Not everybody is that lucky. But I also realized that there were a lot more safe people to come out to than I could ever imagine. And that's right, Barry. You're a safe dog to come out. Or Bambi. That was you, Bambi girl. Yeah, I just realized that there were a lot more safe people to come out to than I realized. And over the course of the next few years, after I wrote that whole story down, I realized that there was this one thing that Ryan had been telling me every week that we were meeting up. Or not every week, but at least he had said it a few times. And that was that he wanted me to be free. And at the time, I knew what he meant, and I hated the idea. I knew that was what was next for me in order for me to be myself, to live my truth, and to be free, but I didn't want to do it. And I realized after I came out that because there were so many more safe people to come out to, that I didn't have to be so afraid of being free. I didn't have to be so afraid of coming out. And I just wish I would have known that there were all these safe people to come out to prior to coming out, because I would have done it sooner. And that's essentially the origin story of a night like this, of a Be Free night like this, is that, you don't have to be LGBTQ plus to experience what I experienced being in the closet. We all get taught from a young age by society or family or friends or whatever it may be that you need to fit a certain mold. You need to damn near be perfect in order to be loved and accepted. And I just want to say that that's not true. We are all human beings, and we have so many different things that we're going through, so many questions and doubts and mistakes and just ways that we fuck up, reasons we get mad at ourselves, things that we regret. Things that we get told are wrong about us. And I just want to say that's not true. We're all human beings. We're all worthy of love. And we all deserve to be heard and to be known and to be free. And I'd never, ever, after 10 years, want that to be lost on me. And that's why I keep doing this. I don't want to forget it, and I don't want anyone else to forget it either. You're loved. You're worthy of love, whatever you're going through. I'm talking to you, chat, as well. And unconditional love is a beautiful term, but I kind of think it's a little repetitive, because love is always unconditional. and we don't need to specify that it's unconditional love. Love is love, and there's nothing you can do that no way that you can be that can make you unlovable. And if you love someone else, you love them no matter what. And if someone says that they love you, they fucking better mean that they love you no matter what. Because that's what love is. I believe it's way more radical than we give it credit for. And yeah. So I just want to say thank you everyone here for being safe people to come out to, for being be-free people in more ways than just one, for loving LGBTQ plus people, for loving anyone who's different from yourselves, because you never know the power that your love has to help other people be free. And thank you, chat, for being here as well. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming, and be free. Thank you. Feel free to hang out as long as you want, and thank you all again so much for coming. Moving in.